Have you ever heard a story that stayed with you, not because you believed it, but because you couldn't prove it was impossible? The story you're about to hear came from someone who asked to remain anonymous. I've changed the names to protect the people involved. Everything else is exactly how it was told to me when I finished reading it. I found myself staring at the screen for several minutes, not because I was trying to understand what happened, but because I couldn't stop asking myself one question. If this really happened, how did anyone make it out alive? What you're about to hear is not a story about ghosts or monsters or abandoned places. It's about a hotel, a normal hotel, a place where 6 friends stopped for one night during a road trip. And somehow, that one night changed the rest of their lives. This is Tales of the Dark. My name is Ethan Carter, and 5 years ago, I checked into a hotel that wasn't supposed to exist. It was supposed to be the best week of our lives. 6 friends, 1 road trip, 3 countries, thousands of miles. The plan had started as a joke. Ryan wanted to film a travel documentary. Olivia was a freelance filmmaker and immediately agreed. Mia loved old towns and hidden places. Daniel just wanted a break from work. Sophie wanted photographs for her university project. And I simply wanted to drive. We were all in our 20s, young enough to believe that every road led somewhere interesting, and old enough to think nothing bad could happen to us. For 7 days, everything went perfectly. Small villages, mountain roads, cheap motels, long conversations late at night, the kind of trip people remember for years. Then, on the 8th day, the rain started. At first it was light, then heavier. By evening it had become a storm. The highway disappeared beneath sheets of water, visibility dropped. The GPS signal became weak, then disappeared completely. Ryan looked at his phone. No signal. Olivia checked hers. Nothing. Daniel sighed. Great. Mia looked through the windshield. We should stop somewhere. The nearest town was still over 2 hours away. The road ahead twisted through mountains and thick forest. Darkness had already fallen. Then Sophie pointed ahead. I see lights, far in the distance. Through the rain, a building stood among the trees. Warm yellow lights glowed from dozens of windows. A sign near the road read, Grand Cedar Hotel. Ryan laughed. Perfect timing. The hotel looked old but beautiful. 4 stories, stone walls, large windows, soft golden lights. It felt strangely comforting after hours of driving through darkness. The parking lot was nearly empty. Only 5 cars, which seemed odd for a hotel that large, but none of us questioned it. We carried our bags inside. The lobby was incredible. Dark wooden walls, a large fireplace, soft music, leather chairs, old paintings. The entire place felt expensive. Much more expensive than a roadside hotel should have been. Behind the reception desk stood an older woman. She smiled warmly. Welcome. Her voice was calm, gentle, almost familiar. Would you like rooms for the night? Daniel asked the question we were all thinking. How much? The woman smiled. You can settle the bill when you leave. Ryan laughed. Best hotel ever. I noticed something then. There was no name tag, no computer, no reservation system, only an old guest book. The woman handed us keys. Real keys, not key cards, heavy brass keys. Our rooms were all on the 3rd floor. Room 301, 302, 303, 304, 305, 306. The elevator stood nearby, an old elevator with metal doors. Above it hung a directory. Lobby, 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, no basement, nothing unusual, at least, not yet. We took our bags upstairs. The hallway was silent, too silent. Hotels always have noise, footsteps, televisions, people talking. This place had nothing, only silence. My room was 304. Mia's room was next to mine. Ryan and Olivia were across the hall. Daniel and Sophie stayed at the end of the corridor. The rooms themselves were beautiful. Large beds, wooden furniture, warm lights, everything spotless. Ryan knocked on my door 20 minutes later. We're going downstairs. Food. The dining room was empty, no guests, only us. The receptionist served our meals herself, which felt strange for a hotel that size. Still, The food was excellent for a while, everything felt normal, we laughed, talked, planned the next part of our trip. Then Sophie asked a question, a simple question. One that changed everything. Have you seen any other guests? Silence. Ryan looked around. No. Olivia frowned. Not even one. Daniel shrugged. Maybe it's off-season. Maybe, but it didn't feel like that. There were cars outside, 5 cars. But 6 of us had arrived in 2 vehicles. That meant there should have been at least 3 other groups staying there. Yet we hadn't seen anyone, not in the lobby, not in the hallways, not in the dining room. Nowhere. Mia smiled nervously. Maybe they went to sleep early. Nobody answered. Later that night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was scared, because something felt wrong, not dangerous, just wrong. I looked outside my window. Rain continued falling. The parking lot sat below. Our 2 cars remained where we'd left them, and beside them, 3 other vehicles, a black SUV, a white van, an old blue sedan. I remembered them clearly. Then lightning flashed. For less than a second, the parking lot became bright and the vehicles disappeared. Only our 2 cars remained. I sat upright. The next flash came seconds later. The cars were back. I stared for several moments, trying to explain it. Reflection, rain, fatigue, anything. I closed the curtain, went back to bed. The next morning, Ryan banged on my door. Ethan, come look at this. Everyone stood in the hallway. Daniel pointed toward the window at the end of the corridor. Outside, sunshine, bright blue sky, no rain, but my room window still showed a storm. Heavy rain, dark clouds, 2 windows, same floor, different weather. Ryan laughed nervously. That's impossible. Daniel immediately tried to explain it. Different direction, different weather system. Sophie shook her head. The windows faced the same side. Nobody spoke. Then Olivia noticed something else. The painting beside the hallway window, it showed the hotel, but the parking lot was full. Dozens of cars and standing near the entrance. 6 people, 5 were easy to see, but the 6th person stood slightly apart. Their face had been scratched away. Ryan forced a smile. Okay, that's creepy. The receptionist appeared behind us. None of us had heard her approach. Breakfast is ready. We followed her downstairs. The dining room was exactly as we'd left it, except for one thing, a photograph hung on the wall. None of us remembered seeing it before. It showed 6 people standing in front of the hotel, a family smiling, happy. The picture looked old, very old. Ryan stepped closer, then stopped. The man in the photograph looked exactly like him, not similar, exactly. Olivia looked at the woman beside him. She turned pale. That looks like me. Sophie stared at the children. Daniel looked at me. Nobody spoke. Because all 6 faces in that photograph looked like us, not younger, not older, us, exactly as we were now. The receptionist quietly placed plates on the table, as if nothing was strange. I pointed at the picture. Who are they? She looked at it, smiled, and answered softly, guests. That was enough. Daniel stood up immediately. We're leaving. No one argued. 20 minutes later, our bags were packed. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. We loaded the cars, started the engines, and drove toward the highway. No one spoke. Nobody laughed. We all wanted distance from that place. 30 minutes passed. Then Ryan suddenly sat forward. Ethan, slow down. I looked ahead. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Standing beside the road was a wooden sign, Grand Cedar Hotel. We had returned. Nobody understood how. Daniel got out of his car. This isn't possible. We had driven in a straight line. There had been no turns, no intersections, no chance we could have come back. And yet, the hotel stood exactly where we had left it. Warm lights, silent windows. The receptionist waited by the entrance, smiling, as if she had known we would return. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I was beginning to think, you weren't coming back. The receptionist's smile never changed. It wasn't welcoming anymore. It was the smile of someone who had expected us to fail. Ryan stepped forward. How did we get back here? She looked at him for a moment, then answered as if the question were ordinary. You left. You simply chose the wrong road. Daniel shook his head. There was only one road. Then perhaps, she said quietly, it was the only road available. None of us knew how to respond. For the first time since arriving, I noticed something, the wind. The trees surrounding the hotel weren't moving, not even a little. The leaves were perfectly still, yet I could hear the sound of wind. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from somewhere inside the hotel. Ryan grabbed his backpack. I don't care, I'm walking. I'm getting as far away from this place as possible. Without waiting for anyone, he started down the road. Olivia hurried after him. The rest of us followed. Nobody looked back. We walked for almost 40 minutes. No talking, no jokes, just the sound of our footsteps. Finally, Ryan smiled. There, ahead of us, the highway, cars, traffic, civilization, we all sighed with relief. Then, a truck drove past. The driver looked directly at us. His expression changed. He slammed on his brakes. The truck stopped in the middle of the road. The driver jumped out. "What are you people doing?" Ryan pointed behind him. "We're trying to leave that hotel." The driver frowned. "What hotel?" We all turned around. The forest stretched behind us. There was no hotel. No parking lot, no entrance, nothing, just trees. Daniel laughed nervously. "This isn't funny." The truck driver looked confused. "I've driven this road every day for 12 years. There's never been a hotel here." He climbed back into his truck before leaving. He rolled down the window. "If I were you, I wouldn't stay in these woods after dark." Then he drove away. Nobody moved because our cars were gone. The place where we'd parked them was empty. Ryan whispered, "I parked right there." Olivia slowly raised her camera. "I've been recording all morning." She replayed the footage. The hotel appeared, the lobby, the dining room, the photograph, everything. Then came the moment we packed the cars, except the video showed us loading luggage into empty air. There were no cars. We watched ourselves opening invisible doors, closing invisible trunks, then pretending to drive away. Silence. Daniel reached for the camera. "This thing's broken." Olivia pulled it back. "No, it isn't." Sophie looked pale. "My phone." She opened her gallery. Every photograph from the trip was still there, except everything before the hotel had disappeared. 7 days of photographs. Gone, only the hotel remained. Ryan checked his phone. The same thing. Daniel, same. Mine, same. It was as if our trip had begun here. Mia quietly asked, "What day is it?" I looked at my watch. Tuesday. Daniel looked at his phone. Friday. Ryan checked the dashboard clock on the camera. Sunday. None of us had the same date. None of us had the same time. Sophie suddenly grabbed my arm. "Ethan. Listen." We all fell silent. Somewhere inside the forest, people were talking, not shouting, talking calmly like a group of hikers. Ryan called out, "Hello." The voices stopped. Then they all answered together. "Hello." Exactly the same tone. Exactly the same timing. Nobody spoke after that. We walked toward the voices. The deeper we went into the forest, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects, no animals, just our footsteps. Then we found them, a row of wooden signposts, old, weathered. Each one pointed in a different direction. Every sign read the same thing. Grand Cedar Hotel, left, right, forward, backward. Every direction led to the hotel. Ryan laughed, a frightened laugh. "This has to be a prank." Daniel kicked one of the signs. It didn't move. It felt like solid concrete. Then Olivia noticed something nailed to the back of one post. A faded missing person poster. The photograph had almost completely faded away, but one sentence was still readable. "Last seen checking into Grand Cedar Hotel." No date, no name, nothing else. Sophie stepped backward. There are more. Dozens of posters covered the backs of the signs. Different faces, different ages, different decades, all with the same sentence. "Last seen checking into Grand Cedar Hotel." Ryan slowly counted them. There are at least 50. Daniel suddenly turned. "Did anyone hear that?" Footsteps. Behind us, walking through the leaves, we spun around. Nobody. The footsteps stopped. Ryan whispered, "Keep walking." The footsteps started again, matching ours. Step, step, step. Whenever we stopped, they stopped. Whenever we walked, they followed. Always the same distance behind us. Never getting closer, never falling behind. After nearly an hour, the trees opened and my heart sank. The hotel again, exactly where we'd started. The receptionist stood outside holding 6 umbrellas. "I told you," she smiled. "You should have stayed inside." Nobody argued anymore. We walked back into the lobby, not because we wanted to, because we had run out of choices. The receptionist handed each of us a room key. "They've changed." Daniel frowned. "What? The rooms?" She pointed toward the brass keys. Mine no longer read room 304. It now read room 417. Ryan looked at his, room 101. Mia's key read room 402. Olivia's read room 215. Daniel's read room 404. Sophie stared at hers. There was no room number, only one word: basement. There isn't a basement. She looked up. There wasn't. The receptionist smiled again. There is now, before anyone could respond. Every light inside the lobby flickered just once. The grandfather clock near the fireplace began striking. 1, 2, 3, it continued. 14. 15, 16, 17, it finally stopped at 24, exactly 24 chimes, even though the clock face showed only 8:00 p.m. Ryan whispered, "That's impossible." The receptionist looked toward the staircase. "They're waiting." "Who?" She looked back at us. "The other guests." A loud knock echoed somewhere above us. Then another, not random, one after another, moving through the hotel. First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor. Each knock grew louder, closer, until 3 slow knocks echoed directly behind the reception desk. The receptionist's smile disappeared for the first time. She slowly looked toward the sound, then at us. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They've never come downstairs before." At that exact moment, every room key in our hands became ice cold, and somewhere above us, an elevator bell rang. Even though none of us had seen an elevator when we walked back inside, the elevator bell echoed through the lobby. None of us moved. I looked toward the far end of the room, where the elevator should have been. There was only a blank wooden wall. Ryan pointed. "Did you guys hear that?" Another bell, this time louder. Then, the wall slowly split down the middle. Wood slid silently to either side. An elevator stood behind it. Old brass doors, no call button, no floor indicator. Just 2 doors waiting to open. Nobody spoke. The doors slid apart, empty. Soft classical music played inside. Daniel backed away. "No, I'm done. I'm not getting in that thing." The receptionist finally spoke. "You don't have to, but eventually." "Everyone does." Ryan stepped toward her. "Who are you?" She looked at him for the first time. She didn't smile. "I check people in, and I check people out. That's all." Olivia suddenly grabbed my arm. "Ethan." I followed her gaze behind the reception desk. There was another guest book. It hadn't been there before. This one looked newer. She quietly opened it. Hundreds of names filled the pages. Different years, different handwriting. Every entry had the same final column, checked out, except the last page. There were 6 names, written in fresh black ink. Ethan Carter, Mia Brooks, Ryan Walker, Olivia Hayes, Daniel Reed, Sophie Miller. The check-out column beside every name was blank. My mouth went dry. "We never signed this." The receptionist answered without looking at us. "You didn't have to." Daniel slammed the book shut. "Enough, we're leaving." He walked to the front entrance, pulled the door open. Darkness, not outside, just darkness. No road, no forest, no parking lot, nothing. It looked like the doorway opened into an endless black room. Daniel slowly reached one hand forward. His fingers disappeared into the darkness. Then his entire arm. He pulled it back immediately. His sleeve was soaking wet, but not with water. A thick layer of fine grey dust covered it. He stared at it. I felt stairs. There were stairs. Ryan picked up a chair. "I'm done playing games." He threw it through one of the lobby windows. The glass exploded outward. We rushed over. Outside the broken window was another hotel hallway, not the forest, not the parking lot. A hallway, room doors stretched into the distance, exactly like the 3rd floor, except every door stood open. Every room was empty, every light was on, nobody wanted to step through. Then we heard footsteps coming from that hallway, slow, calm. Someone was walking toward the broken window. We couldn't see them, only hear them. Step, step, step. The footsteps stopped just beyond the wall. Whoever it was standing directly outside the broken window, watching us. Ryan whispered, "Close it." "How?" Before anyone could answer. The shattered glass slowly pulled itself back together. Thousands of tiny fragments floated through the air, reforming the window. Within seconds, It looked brand new, as if nothing had happened. Sophie began crying. "I want to go home." Mia hugged her. "We will." Even she didn't sound convinced. Then, every light in the hotel went out, complete darkness. Someone screamed. It wasn't one of us. The lights returned. Daniel was gone. Only his room key remained on the floor, room 404, still covered in frost. Ryan shouted his name, no answer. We searched the entire lobby. Restaurant, kitchen, hallways, nothing. He had vanished in the few seconds the lights were off. Olivia picked up his key on the back. Words slowly appeared, checked IN. The receptionist quietly crossed Daniel's name out of the guest book. No emotion, no surprise. Ryan lost his temper. He grabbed her by the shoulders. "What did you do to him?" She looked genuinely confused. "I didn't do anything. He accepted his room." "What does that mean?" She slowly raised one finger, pointing toward the ceiling. We all looked up. Someone was walking across the floor above us. Heavy footsteps. Then another pair, then another, then another. 5 sets of footsteps, not 6. Ryan counted them too. He looked at me. There should still be 6. Then we understood one of those footsteps belonged to Daniel. But he wasn't with us anymore. The elevator bell rang again. The brass doors opened. This time, the control panel was visible. There were no numbers, only room numbers: 101, 215, 402, 404, 417. Basement. Every room key in our hands began vibrating. The matching button lit up. Mine 417. Ryan's 101, Mia's 402, Olivia's 215, Sophie's basement. The receptionist spoke quietly. "The hotel has prepared your rooms." "No." Ryan threw his key across the lobby. It slid across the marble floor, stopped, then slowly began sliding back toward him by itself. Nobody touched it. It stopped beside his shoe. The elevator music suddenly stopped. Silence. Then a man's voice came from inside. "Ethan." I froze. It was my father's voice. He had died 11 years earlier. "Son, I've been waiting." Mia looked at me. "You heard that too?" I nodded. Ryan stepped inside the elevator. "There's nobody here." The doors immediately started closing. Olivia grabbed him. We pulled him back just before they shut. The elevator began moving by itself. We watched the floor indicator, except there wasn't one instead. Words appeared above the doors. "Now serving room 404, a distant scream echoed through the shaft. "Daniel." It lasted only 2 seconds, then complete silence. Nobody spoke, nobody breathed. The receptionist quietly closed the guest book. "You still have time." "For what?" She looked directly at me. "To leave." Ryan laughed bitterly. "You've been telling us that since yesterday." She slowly shook her head. "No, you've been here much longer than yesterday." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Without saying another word. She walked behind the counter, returned carrying 6 passports, our passports. She handed mine to me. I opened it. My hands started shaking. The issue date was correct. Everything looked normal until I reached the last page. There were over 30 hotel entry stamps, every one of them red. Grand Cedar Hotel, different years, different months, different countries. Impossible. We had only arrived once. Ryan checked his, the same, so did everyone else. Sophie looked ready to collapse. "I don't understand." The receptionist looked at all of us. Her expression had changed completely. For the first time, she looked sad. "You don't remember?" "You never do." Before we could ask another question, a deafening crash echoed from somewhere above. The chandelier swayed violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then, every clock inside the lobby stopped at exactly the same second. 11:47. The receptionist slowly looked toward the elevator. Her face turned pale. She whispered something so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. "They found you." The elevator doors slid open one last time. Inside, 6 people were standing perfectly still. They weren't strangers, they were us. Every one of them smiled, and together, they took one step forward. That was the end of this story. If you've ever experienced something you still can't explain, or you have a strange story of your own, send it to Tales of the Dark. Your story could become the next nightmare featured on this channel. And if you're new here, subscribe to Tales of the Dark, because here, every story leaves you questioning. what might be waiting in the dark. Until next time, sleep well if you can.